Jaxson Dart ran the Giants to his and their first win of the season, but they did lose Malik Nabers for the season. So let's talk about what all that means for the Giants on the short term and, of course, the long term as well. I've got Paul Schwartz to, I believe it's my stage right, I believe. And then I also have Giants Super Bowl champ David Tyree on my stage left for some post-dub talk. Gentlemen, really quick before we get in and start breaking down this win, I want to send some prayers up and out for Giants owner John Mara, who just released a statement announcing that he's been diagnosed with cancer. DT, I'll start with you, man. You know Mr. Mara. What does he mean not only to you but to the franchise as well?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to place words on that when you just think about John. I think most people who are connected to this New York Giant football team understand the legacy of this company. It's a family, and that's all I've ever known John to be is a tremendous steward of a family legacy. So tremendous prayers toward him because that's exactly what he's exuded to all that he, in relation to culture and care for his players, the organization, and thus forth. So definitely tough times.
Same with you, Paul. You've covered the team for a long time. You know all about the Maras. What does he mean to you and the franchise from covering it?
Well, I knew his father, Wellington Mara, quite well when I started covering the Giants. Mr. Mara, which was Wellington, was there, and I was very fond of him. Just a regal presence. And David knows watching him at practice, and love to watch the offensive linemen. Unlike most owners, is that he was a football guy, and John is very similar to that. John really picked up the mantle from his father, Wellington, quite well. And, the one thing when people say, well, us as fans, when fans say we care about it more than they do, not more than the players, not more than the coaches. And you know what? Not more than John Mara. It's in his blood. If you cut him, it's going to be blue. This is his business. He's not an oil man. He's not a real estate tycoon. He's not a financial guy. He is a Giant owner. That's what he is. And so, yes, prayers up to John. He's a class act, and we're wishing him the best.
Yeah, and I mean, just a personal story for me. DT 2016 was my first year coming back to the Giants doing the TV stuff. They gave me my start not only in my football career, but my television career as well. I'm standing in the cafeteria. I get a tap on the shoulder. It's Mr. Mara, and he's, Brandon, I heard you were back. Welcome back. And here I am, this practice squad guy all over the DVD waving there's my claim to fame with the team. And, he was the first one or one of the first ones in that cafeteria to say hello and welcome back. So that just, our prayers are up for him. Again, he says he's going to fight it, and we know he is. He says he's got some really good doctors. He's going to listen to the treatment. So our prayers are up for him while he fights that battle and for his recovery as well. All right, fellas, let's move on to talking about Jaxson Dart. He came in, got the first win. He didn't light it up with 300 plus and 3 touchdowns. Got it done with his legs, got them in the end zone on that very first drive, which as you turned the entire stadium up, made my job easy. So I'll start with you, Paul, man. What do you think of Jaxson Dart and his first win and how the Giants looked overall as well?
I think he's 1-0. I think he's 1-0, and that's the job of a quarterback. Go 1-0, win the game, right? You can look, 2 weeks ago, Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Giants didn't win. Wasn't Russell Wilson's fault, but they didn't win. This game, Brandon, the Giants were ahead for 51 minutes, the last 51 minutes of the game. So they could navigate the game with this rookie quarterback making his first start. They were down by 2 touchdowns. They couldn't navigate the game. They were down by 2 touchdowns. The pass rush couldn't pin their ear back and go because the Chargers would be running the ball. So it all worked well, but Jaxson Dart gave him the lead with that very dynamic first series. And the main thing I would say is like the Hippocratic Oath with physicians, right? Above all else, do no harm. No turnovers. Justin Herbert had 2 interceptions. That was the difference in the game. I don't care about the stats. He'll have to raise those stats moving forward, but do no harm, no turnovers. 1 turnover in this game would have sunk the Giants. Jaxson Dart had none.
DT, when Jaxson Dart kind of got, I don't want to say knocked out of the game, but the NFL spotters kind of made him leave for, I guess a play. Russell Wilson comes in, gets sacked. The entire place starts booing. Jaxson Dart comes back in. The entire place goes crazy again. Like, is the hype real? Like, is the energy real surrounding this kid? Or is they just been in some sort of quarterback purgatory for so long, anybody who steps in there would get a standing ovation?
Well said. I think you kind of read the direction in which I was going. I think as it stands right now, in light of the New York Football Giants organization, fan base collectively needs the fresh wind, right? So I think every single opportunity, Jaxson Dart represents hope. Jaxson Dart is the modern day Luke Skywalker and during the days of Vader. So I think what we're talking about and what we've seen in this wonderful 1-0 introduction is that this kid energizes. They've already pegged him as the future of the franchise and leading this. When you start talking about the audition phase of the first couple games for Russell Wilson, it just didn't go as advertised. It reminds me a little eerie, and Paul remembers this as well. Obviously, when we draft Eli Manning, we have what is perceived to be a decline in Kurt Warner, and Kurt Warner actually played pretty decent football and got us to, I believe, 4-4. But there was just so much anticipation, and I think what happens is when you're trying to pass this baton. The moment that there's tension from productivity to winning, there was always going to be a pull the plug moment. So not a bad thing at all. I was really elated at his poise in the midst of the pressure. Playing in New York playing in New York City is a lot to take on, and he mounted that on his shoulders.
But you guys had Tiki Barber in the backfield at that time. You had a running game. Paul, this Giants run game it's non-existent at this point. You know, Cam Scatterboo rushes for 25 times, only gets 44 yards. Jaxson Dart rushes for 10 times, only gets like 20 something yards. Is this sustainable at this point?
I think you're shortchanging him a little bit here. You know, I'm a numbers guy here. Okay, Cam Scatterboo, 25 carries, 79 yards. Okay, Jaxson Dart, 10 carries, 54 yards. Yes, but the notion that the Giants ran the ball great. No, they ran the ball often. And because they had that lead, they could do that and moved it often enough. 161 yards is great. On 42 carries, not so great. 3.2 yards per carry. So that's not good enough. But on this day, it was good enough. You guys know you played the game. Every week is different. You may win with 13 this week. You may need 37 the next week. It's just different, you know. And so the running game was not great. You know, Cam Scatterboo, the one-time thing, you know, everyone loves him. He's a bruiser, right? You know, he's got a great name. He's low to the ground. He takes on blockers. After Dex's interception, right, which got to the 3-yard line, right at the end of the first half. So they try a few plays down at the left end, and first down, Jaxson Dart tries a quarterback sneak. It goes nowhere. Then they move over to the other side of the field. They blocked it beautifully for Cam Scatterboo. And this is what you guys know as players, right? They set it up for you, and you have to do the rest. They can't scheme it, so David Tyree is absolutely 100% wide open. He's sort of open, right? I mean, it's great if you can scheme it that way. So Cam Scatterboo, they have it blocked that he has only the cornerback to beat, and he doesn't beat him, right? He tries to go over him. He doesn't beat him. Now, that's not ripping Cam Scatterboo. That's just saying you need to be in a position to score a touchdown there, and they didn't do that. So, yes, and I feel, and I sensed this the game yesterday, they really missed Tyrone Tracy. I mean, he had 800 and something yards last year, and I think Cam Scatterboo could be part of a really good 1-2 punch. Where's the other 1-2 with Cam Scatterboo? That's Tyrone Tracy when he gets back.
Two things on that, Paul. On DT's touchdown in the Super Bowl, KG schemed the man up wide open in the back of the end zone. So I know what you're saying, but DT was and then jumped up and had to catch it all. So there's one. And then I was with Ahmad Bradshaw because we did the whole field goal kicking competition at the 2-minute drill. So we're hanging out talking, and he said exactly what you said, Paul. He's like, one-on-one, that kid with the plays that he's made, he's got to make that score there because you can't walk out of there after a turnover with just 3 points. That was the play for them to get into the end zone. So Ahmad Bradshaw kind of commented on it. But again, like you said, there's no knock. This rookie's going to learn as he continues to get better and get used to the NFL. But that was his moment right there. That could have been a 2-touchdown performance. Going forward, DT, it looks like they're going to have to run the ball a lot because when we talk about explosive weapons, there's a kid named Malik Nabers who has just stepped in and done all the right things since he's been here. And I don't know if if somebody within the Giants owes the football gods money or something, but him going down, that sucked the life out of the entire stadium, and it feels like it could suck the life out of this Giants passing game. So going forward, how do you get production out of these receivers that are not named Malik Nabers?
Well said. I think you actually have to empower. Something that was pretty powerful that I saw, and this was just an observation. There's always going to be a little bit of intuition and some psychological elements when you have factors that go down for you. Syracuse loses their starting quarterback, and immediately they put the backup guy in and they throw a touchdown. I think this is what they have to do for the receiving core. They actually have to treat these guys like they're starting material. How do you position a speed guy who hasn't shown much consistency and reliability coming in out of the race like Jalen Hyatt? How do you incorporate a talent and position them to actually believe they're better than what they've proven themselves to be? Jalen Hyatt, we don't need Jalen Hyatt because he's a third-round draft pick. We need him because he can play at a level, not because he's earned it, because he's needed. And I think there's a psychological element that the Giants are going to have to be really strategic. They did a very great job collectively. They don't have a bell cow playmaker on this offense now with Malik Nabers out, and that is the deafening blow to this offense. So, but the combination of the offensive line play, which has obviously been a story for years, and a little bit of this psychological element of, hey, you are the guy now, and we're going to treat you like the guy because we don't have other options. And I just really believe that it has to be other than Wan'Dale Robinson. You have to mash the gas on your leader as a Darius Slayton and say, we actually need you to run some comeback routes. We actually might need to move this guy on the inside with Wan'Dale and do some things that he hasn't done. There's going to have to be some creativity in order for this wide receiver room to make some deeper production.
And I thought last year Darius Slayton kind of came on throughout the course of the season in terms of showing that he can run the tree, have a couple crossing routes here, deep crossers. Obviously, you're always going to have a guy like that put his skill set on tape, which is his speed. But he was kind of a security blanket for Daniel Jones at times, running those hinge routes, those cat routes, those stop routes. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him. And Paul, you had mentioned I sent you the topics. You had mentioned making sure that I asked DT what he thinks about Jalen Hyatt. I didn't even tell him. So that was the first thing that's popped up in everyone's mind, even in the Giants group chats that I'm in. All right, does this mean they're going to start using Jalen Hyatt a little bit more? Paul, do you think they have enough in that room to have receiver by committee?
I don't, but it doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. They have to do it. You know what I mean? There's no cavalry charge here. It's not like baseball, right? Where you can just say, we need a pitcher, we need a pinch hitter, we just got to trade for one. There's nobody out there in the free agent market. They're not going to sign Odell Beckham Jr. People ask me about Gabe Davis, the former Bills guy who Gabe will work with. He's on the Bills practice squad and he's hurt. So he's not coming. He's hurt and he's on the Bills practice squad. So, is there some guys out there? Maybe. Can you trade for a guy? Doubtful. Who are you trading for? You're trading for someone's fourth receiver and you're going to give up draft equity for that? I don't know if, so you have on the practice squad, you have little Jordan Humphrey, who's a guy who has played in the NFL, right? I think Gunnar Olszewski looked really good in training camp. I think you need to give him a battlefield promotion. See if he can be a little slot guy to run around a little bit. I mean, and Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins, right? Bo Collins looked terrific in the summer. He's a big, strong guy. He's a good special teams guy. Can he people told David Tyree couldn't do it, right? And
Okay.
and he did it. So, I mean, look, there's going to be plenty of guys telling Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins and Little Jordan Humphrey and Gunnar Olszewski, you can't do it because there's no reason to think they can. If one of those guys can do something, and Hyatt would be the natural guy, but I just haven't seen anything from him. It's a mystery to me why a guy who's. I will ask David this and you, Brandon, because you guys play the position. He can run. He's not great size, but he's not small. He can run. I don't think he's got unbelievable hands, but he can catch the ball. He was the Biletnikoff winner in college. It's not just opportunity. What is with him that he can't get it done?
Go ahead, DT.
It's confidence. It's borderline confidence, and I don't know what the football name for it is. I know baseball has some psychological term, but there's something really lacking. And I think when you're in a merit-based observation business, it's really deflating for coaches who are putting their careers on the line to entrust that with a kid he looks young, he says all the right things, he has this boyish. It doesn't have a strong disposition. I'm looking at it the same, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's almost like you gotta just reach down into this heart and make it beat for him. And just because he actually can, not that he can do it consistently. You don't want to see the guy drop the ball, but you got to throw it right back at him because the skill set is too valuable at this point for the New York Football Giants. And is it a risk? Yes, it's a risk. But I also like Bo Collins as well. I think he's a little bit more comprehensive. He's tougher. He's grittier. So I do believe they have some options. They're not the options that you want, but they're the options that you got. And I think that's what football is all about. That's what I made a career off of. And that's the next man up mentality. If you don't have the mentality, and I think that's what maybe Jalen Hyatt has lacked. They don't believe in me. I'm actually going according to the script, and they got to cut bait with it so they can actually move forward and keep themselves in a really competitive position in light of these next few games.
Well, if I'm Jalen Hyatt, if I'm Bo Collins, if I'm Lil Jordan Humphrey, and I get bumped up off the practice squad, I have all the confidence in the world because DT, you think about it. Who have you been running with in the spring, in the summer? You've been going with the twos with Jaxson Dart, who is now the QB1. Jaxson Dart. So I know Russell Wilson talked about unlocking Jalen Hyatt's potential, and those two, they connected at times and during the not so much preseason, but in training camp, enough to keep Jalen Hyatt on the roster. But the bulk of your reps came with Jaxson Dart, not only on the field, but when you're off to the side. Lil Jordan Humphrey, you caught a dart from Jaxson Dart in the preseason. So if you get bumped up, I've already got that timing. I've already been in a huddle with this kid, and I've been the guy. Rest in peace, Hefty Lefty, Jared Lorenzen. If he would have gotten in the game, DT, and I would have somehow been bumped up and been in the game, I would have been more comfortable going with him than I would have Eli, because I had already been in the huddle and I've been taking reps with him, and I've already proven to J-Lo that I can make plays for him. So I know I may not get the call, or I might not be the target for a ball, but if Jaxson Dart's moving around, I got one of my guys deep down the field. And you saw him with one of the plays to Darius Slayton, told him to come back on that scramble drill, and he hit Slayton on the sideline. So it could be advantageous. I know these aren't guys that no one's going to start on their fantasy, but right now, if you're the Giants, it's not about fantasy points, it's about real points, and you may have that opportunity. Paul, go ahead and close this out because I got a question for you guys next, and I really want to get you guys' opinions on that. So I guess just close this out when talking about the Giants' pass game and offense going forward.
Look, it's got to get better, and they will have to entrust Jaxson Dart to do more as the games change. They're going into New Orleans this week. The Saints have not won a game. Maybe it's a soft landing spot. I don't think with the Giants anything can be taken for granted. But look, he won his first game. He looked good. He energized the building. We know he's athletic. I would advise him. I wrote in the post today, I would have Jaxson Dart go talk to Eli Manning and just have Eli Manning talk to him about, son, availability. Yeah. I never was hurt. Now, they're different players, and Eli didn't like quarterback sneaks. He didn't want to run, but Eli was tough. He was there every week. You guys know, right, David? Every single week, Eli was there, and it makes a big difference. So you want to make plays, you want to be a hero, that's fine, but don't get hurt doing something stupid, and look, he was hurting after that game, his left hamstring. He was I saw him after the game. He looked knocked around a little bit, and you don't need a steady diet of that. So he'll learn. Josh Allen needed to learn it. Daniel Jones needed to learn it. They almost all need to learn it. Settle down a little bit, kid.
DT, someone needs to tell this kid to slide. Like, I love the eye black, but this is the NFL. You'll lead a game with your eye black, literally. There are some real hitters out there. Like, what do you say to the kid, though, DT? Like, you've been involved with the players and player personnel. Like, you can tell him all you want, but in the heat of a game and he's competitive, he's going to kind of go with his gut instinct. How do you drill it into Jaxson Dart's head to where it's like, hey, bro, you're the future. Get down.
Yeah. And I honestly, I don't think it's going to sit well. I think he has a little bit of a Mel Gibson Braveheart mentality in his mindset that's not going to transfer well to the National Football League. No. I don't think year one is going to be the year we see it. And my biggest concern is that he takes so much punishment. He is not of the Cam Newton, Josh Allen build. He's of their mentality. He's just not of their build. So, but when I've looked at the style of play, the temperament, how he communicates, and who he actually is, I think is truly wired to him. I think years one is going to be his real learning lesson, and hopefully he learns that within these next 3 football games, as opposed to being knocked out of a football game. So that's my take on it. Do I love it? Yes. Do I not? Do I kind of like reek? Yes. So I think the smart moments will be for situations, first downs, touchdowns, as opposed to lowering the shoulder against, paid defensive backs in the National Football League. But again, that's not good when your first football game in the National Football League, you're grabbing your hamstring, and it's very clear that with not a strong offensive line, you're taking hits, clean hits. I'm talking about, slide protections, getting hit on your. It's not even your blind side. It's your strong side. That's not what you want to see in your first outing for your franchise, for the future of your franchise.
When you said that he's got the mindset of a Cam Newton and a Josh Allen, but not that same build, it's like what my dad used to say when I was a kid. Boy, you got champagne taste with beer money. Like, it's those dudes you talking about 2'6'5", 2+, like big dudes, man. You gotta go ahead and get down there. But the best ability is availability. I want to get you guys thoughts on this one, because obviously after the Malik Nabers injury, Odell tweeted to the NFL pleading if they could bring in the grass, turf should be dead. I think there was a stat, and he even called it Dead Life Stadium or Death Life Stadium, not MetLife Stadium. There's a stat that says from 2014, the Giants have drafted 6 receivers or tight ends in the first 2 rounds. 5 of 6 of those guys went down with season-ending injuries suffered at MetLife Stadium. I guess, DT, I'll go to you on this one, man, because you talk to the players and is the MetLife Stadium turf, is it cursed? Should they get away with it? Do away with it?
I think and I'm one of these guys. I'm very patient when we're building narrative, because there's multiple things involved. Obviously, injuries are going to be a part of the game, but any player will prefer to play on grass. And we talk about upkeep, cost, risk, reward. I think the Giants actually have to take a legitimate look at their history over time. Whereas we're one of the most injured football teams in the league over the last 6 to 8 years. In my personal opinion, I don't have the stats to back that up. They have to measure the cost of injury versus the cost of upkeep, right? And I think this is a long-term, broader conversation of NFL owners, and we're talking about protecting players. I know the primary discussion is around concussions, but we actually still have to look at when you lose a Malik Nabers, it's like losing a quarterback for this fan base. He's the attraction. He's the main attraction. When you lose an Odell Beckham, he's the main attraction right now. And you don't want this narrative continuously. And I think we've had this conversation for the last 3 and 4 years as people have been picking up, not just the New York Football Giants, other teams come into MetLife and losing star players. So the NFL, owners have to give themselves a chance to say that they've done all that they could possibly do. And I think we're at, in my personal opinion, I actually think it should be a elevated conversation, not just for MetLife, but is it going to be worth us saying, hey, you know what, let's get some side. Let's get the best position to see if this actually changes the narrative over the next 5 years. It's just money, right? So at the end of the day, let's improve the product. Let's say that we've done all that we can. I'm actually Team OBJ on this one.
Paul, and it's not just the OBJs and the Malik Nabers. Like he said, other teams have come in, and the Aaron Rodgers, Joey Bosa, Kyle Fuller, like the list goes on and on. At first, when people started talking about it, I was like, it's just football. Things happen. But when you continuously see it, and it's non-contact stuff, it's not even like guy's foot is getting like ran into the ground or anything or stuck under anyone. Is there a problem with this turf?
Well, look, I can't speak to the wear and tear like you guys can. I mean, when I stand on it, it hurts my back, okay? But that's, as opposed to standing on grass. It hurts, after you can't, it's true, right? You feel it. You feel it in your calves and your hamstring, but you guys made a living on it. So I'm not going to trivialize that, and I wouldn't. Now, here's a couple of things. When the Giants and Jets decided to build a stadium together, the real grass idea was basically out the window. It doesn't grow in this climate, and it gets chewed up, and they have other games there, and you have the Jets one week and the Giants one week. So I don't think it's just money. Now, what I want to ask you guys is, it's not like the Giants have the only turf field in the league. They say when they get the new turf, they do all the proper testing. They get the best turf available, the newest and safest field turf. What about the domes that are played in? What about in beautiful AT&T Stadium? What is the difference between the MetLife Stadium turf and the other turf fields? That is the question. Is the MetLife Stadium turf worse, or we know grass is better than turf? But you guys played on it or have been. Is there a difference? That's what I want to know.
Go ahead, DT.
Yeah, I don't have any current, obviously I'm OG status with it, so I'm old Giant Stadium. I never got a chance to rock an AT&T Stadium as well. But I'm an advocate for, like now, Paul, what great statement. But it has to be a consideration in light of the rate of volatile injury. Now, is it realistic? Maybe it's just not realistic. Maybe I'm going to be on the side of hopefulness and guys making every opportunity. But I think this was a previous experiment. It means it can be an experiment again. I think it's worth engaging just to remove it. And if it's so, that's my opinion. But there is no other difference if everybody's getting the best stuff. We know these owners can't put themselves in a position to say, I got second grade, third grade field turf. No. I think this is a pure, I know the New York Football Giants as an organization wouldn't subscribe to that, but there's something missing. There's an element. Of course, I believe in wacky things. I caught a ball on my head. So it's some curse or spiritual thing? I don't know, but I'm going to do, if I'm in the position, I'm saying, you know what? We gotta remove every element to remove this narrative, because my house is a den of curses on some of the greatest talent in the world. And that's not a narrative you want on your product. It's not a narrative you want from an ownership perspective. And that's not a narrative when we look at the history of the New York Giants, Ronnie Barnes, and all that's been created. It's a tough narrative to overcome.
Yeah, like you said, it's just money. We're talking about a profit, like the league making double digits and billions of dollars of profits. So you got to find a way to make it work. And as what you were saying, Paul, like I've played in other turf stadiums, during my short NFL career. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else talk about a single stadium being cursed as much as MetLife Stadium. And even when I went to go play up in Canada, and Canada is like not to disrespect the league or anything, but it's like it's JV NFL. You don't make the money that you do up there. The stadiums don't have the money and technologies up there as the NFL stadiums, but you didn't see guys just going down with Achilles injuries, grabbing on their ACLs, the knee after going up for a football. Maybe if it got rolled in a POW or something football related. But when you're seeing non-contact after non-contact injury, and it just reminds me, remember when Sterling Shepard went down that time, just doing nothing, it felt like, just casually jogging a route, and he went down. Again, it has to be something that's studied, because now that's psychologically, you can't play your best football when you're going in there. And it's not even a home field advantage anymore, because if it's going to start getting to your own players and their mental, their psychological welfare, then it has to be a problem. Now, they are going to go to grass because the FIFA World Cup, the final, is at MetLife Stadium. You got to find a way. I think you just have to find a way with all that money everybody's raking in, because if you're gonna throw a flag on somebody because they accidentally fall down on a quarterback, and you're talking about protecting the players, well, you got to find a way. The players play on this surface, So you got to find a way to protect the players when it comes to that as well. We'll see what happens with that. Let's look ahead a little bit on the schedules, fellas, because you're going down to New Orleans, get some good gumbo. Then you got the Eagles coming in, Thursday Night Football. You go to Denver, play the Broncos, and then you go to Philly as well. So there's your next 4 games for Jaxson Dart in this in this Giants team. I guess I'll start with you, Paul. Looking ahead, how do you feel about the next 4 games?
When we were all thinking, when are they going to, pull the plug on Russ? When did they go to the Jaxson Dart? And you look at the schedule, say, okay, let me see if I can find a little bit of a soft landing spot for the kid, right? At home game 1, good. Undefeated Chargers, not good, right? People said, well, maybe they'll wait till week 5 and go for the Saints. But then that's a road game. You guys have been in the Superdome. Saints can be good, Saints can be bad. It's a tough place to play. Yeah. It's just a tough place to play. That's all there is to it. It's hostile, things like that. So then you got the Eagles, then you got the Broncos, then you got the Eagles again. And don't forget, after this, you're going to have like 3 games in 11 days, right? So, it comes fast. There was no soft landing spot. This is the NFL. You can't schedule some MAC team, right? Or some Division 3 team and say, let's in college, let's have we want kind of a bye this week. Let's schedule some team we'll give $500,000 to and we'll beat them. Can't do that in the NFL, right? Doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, look, it'll be fascinating to watch. The Giants are favored. Okay, now, do you hear me? Is my microphone on? The Giants are favored in this game on the road. They're never favored. They're favored on the road. Okay, so how do the Giants handle this? This group knows nothing about prosperity, about winning a game and then playing a game that. And I want you guys who are players, cover your ears right now, okay? Getting ready for a game you are supposed to win, right? How many times have you guys heard that in the locker room where people like me would go over to it? David, let me ask you something. What about this week? This is a game you guys are supposed to win, right? You guys don't like those questions. But we ask them, and it's human nature. So that will be very interesting this week for Jaxson Dart. Brian Dable said there's going to be ups with a rookie quarterback, and there's going to be downs. There's going to be highs, and there's going to be lows. So if there's a low this week, it's going to be a problem. We'll see. It's just very interesting to watch this team that's 1-3, and now you think to yourself, man, if they're 2-3, we got a season. 2-3 is fun. 2-3 is interesting. Okay, we got the Eagles. That's going to be tough, but it's 2-3. We can have something to work with. So let's see. Let's see if they can, stiff arm human nature and win a game against a team that hasn't won a game.
DT, what are you looking forward to in terms of the schedule going forward?
Yeah, man, I think in light of this massive shift to the Jaxson Dart era, that this is probably the best position you could be in. Coming off a win, playing against a winless New Orleans Saints team, that there's something in you that makes you feel a little bit better when you're going against that guy. But there's also the reality of how much improvement needs to happen for this football team. I think the biggest challenge for the New York Football Giants is there's not much room for error and there's no more room for injury. And it's too early in the season when you look at the depth in on this roster for them to be in this kind of position. That's what makes That's what makes this winning football in the National Football League is arduous. And even this Denver Bronco team, they're one touchdown losses, right? 1 point lost, 1 point loss. So you talk about Sean Payton, who's one of the most competitive head coaches, and I think they're going to work to bring the house against Jaxson Dart. And so this is definitely not a toss-up when I'm thinking about the Broncos or the Saints. When you think about, as Paul said, New Orleans on the road, and they definitely need the fathers and the chaplains to put a little extra sauce on the prayers, from John Mara to Malik Nabers to the state of the football team to traveling down New Orleans Saints. They might need a little spiritual cover. I'm a spiritual man. They need all the hands and blessings that can go forward to allow them to navigate this rift right here, because they're winnable games. And obviously, when you're looking at the way the Eagles are playing, you're not expecting for the Giants to be able to kind of withstand that much firepower. So, hey, man, can we get 2-2? That would be a tremendous lift for the New York Football Giants and keeping them in a position to have life this season.
All right, fellas, this was fun. We should do this again sometime. Everything's always fun after a victory, because if they would have lost this DT, me and you would have been like, oh, palms up. Like, what is going on with these dudes? What is happening with this team? And, Paul, we haven't had many Victory Mondays in doing this podcast for a while, so it's good to see all these smiles on everybody's faces. We might just screenshot this and use this as the thumbnail. Appreciate you guys hopping on with us, and appreciate you at home listening and hanging out with us on our latest edition of Blue Rush.